The most hated role in gaming? What the fuck? Tank is the most hated role? Is it?
However, many weapons are the direct descendants of earlier versions first developed generations ago.
Yeah.
The Minutemen of Lexington and Concord used a gun which was the
All right, let's talk about tanks in video games.
Sure.
The tank role has been an integral part of multiplayer gaming, especially in MMORPGs, since forever. From PvP games like Overwatch and League of Legends to PvE titles like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV, tanks are typically the least popular role in gaming, and those who do take on the burden often risk toxicity and ridicule from fellow players.
I think that tanks in Overwatch are pretty popular.
Baby, you're a little toddler.
Shut the fuck up.
Why is one of the most important video game roles so unpopular? That is what we're going to explore today.
Tanks and why we hate them.
So,
the reason why I think tanks are unpopular and people don't play them is because, like, in classic WoW, it's not fun to play a tank. That's the main reason. It's got nothing to do with anything else. It's just simply not fun to play a tank because you don't do any damage, you can't do anything. Oftentimes, your effectiveness is tied to other players, and you have more responsibility.
What other roles are there?
And you can't solo either.
Besides the tank. For that, we'll look at the Holy Trinity. A concept, not that Holy Trinity. This one is a staple of most MMORPGs. It breaks down into three general roles. DPS, whose focus is dealing damage per second, the healers, who keep everyone alive, and the tanks, who soak up damage from enemies. Today, the Holy Trinity remains common and is used in titles like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV.
It always worries me whenever I see a game that doesn't use that Holy Trinity system because I just assume it's going to be bad.
So, what does playing a tank actually entail? For this, we'll go to Wikipedia. Tank characters deliberately attract enemy attention and attacks, potentially by using in-game mechanics that force them to be targeted to act as a decoy for teammates. Since this requires them to endure concentrated enemy attacks, they typically rely on a high health pool or support by friendly healers to survive while sacrificing their own damage output. Basically, your job is to attract the attention of enemies and make sure that your teammates don't get caught in the line of fire. Because it's up to you to decide how many monsters you pull and where they'll be positioned, you, by default, also dictate the pace of the raid. Go too fast, healing and damage output won't be enough to keep you alive, and you're going to die. Go too slow, your party is going to get frustrated and move at a snail's pace. Go at just the right speed, and no one will acknowledge that you did anything at all. Plus,
I feel like tanking is usually a job that gets some level of acknowledgement. I personally think that the job that is the most hated is healers. I think that healers have the worst job because as a healer, the difficulty of the game is completely determined by the other people in your party. Like, basically, whenever you're healing, you have 4 Mythic Plus affixes in every single dungeon, because those are the other 4 people you're playing with.
If those two things weren't enough pressure already, the success of a raid hinges purely on the tank. If a DPS or a healer dies, you can sometimes get away with it. But almost always, if a tank dies, the run is over. For this reason, good tanks are hard to come by. And unless you're a streamer running mythic content with a team of trained professionals, most tanks you meet in matchmaking are not going to be perfect.
Like, and you run still. Somebody's standing behind the thing. You're like, nah, I'm going here. Come on.
Let's look at an example.
It's also that the tanks usually, the problem is the tank has to have the highest level of knowledge about the fight usually. Like, for example, on Blackhand there, the tank had to know, like, where the positioning for the boss needed to be, how to avoid the fire, how to make sure that the boss was away from the tank that was going to spawn in phase 2. They had to be facing the boss towards the balconies that you had to knock players up to and kill. Like, it was very complex. So I think tanking at a base level is probably about as hard as DPS. But the problem is that whenever a DPS makes a mistake, it doesn't matter that much. But whenever a tank makes a mistake, it's usually a wipe.
Example from World of Warcraft. Broodkeeper Diurna. While the fight is fairly straightforward once you understand the mechanics, it's filled with potential run-enders if the tank isn't ready. First, the party has to destroy a bunch of eggs before they hatch. While this is pretty easy, you also have to stay at least 50 yards away from the boss to avoid taking unnecessary damage, so the tank has to know what path to take to be efficient. You also have to be aware of
and also the tank has to be aware of where the ads are going to spawn too.
Powerful tank debuff that is a potential run ender. All the while, you're communicating
really
with your
an issue,
team
but yeah.
to make sure they're focusing on the right things and drawing aggro from enemies.
Right.
For less experienced players who haven't practiced the most efficient routes, the fight can be frustrating and difficult.
And this is even more true with Mythic Plus. Like, I would not want to do Mythic Plus dungeons because I don't really know what I'm doing as a tank. And there's like so much min-maxing of Mythic Plus dungeons that if you're not doing it exactly the right way, then people get really mad at you.
Plus, if we go back to the last part of the Wikipedia definition, it's clear that a tank's success isn't just up to them. They typically rely on a high health pool or support by friendly healers.
This is why I'm playing DPS in hardcore, because I don't trust anybody
To survive.
That's why.
Although tanks might look like this, they're not invincible. They can only soak up so much damage before they need to be healed, which means if you don't have a good healer, you're going to die. And because you're the tank, you're going to take most of the blame. Which brings us to the social element of being a tank. For the most part, unless you're playing with friends, being a tank sucks. On top of having to tank enemies, players often find themselves tanking criticism and mean words from their fellow party members. Steven Messner, a former writer for PC Gamer, put it best when he described his own experience as a tank in World of Warcraft. This is the first time I've run the dungeon on Mythic difficulty, a nightmarish gauntlet where Blizzard throws all of its cruelest ideas at players in exchange for awesome loot.
Oh,
but
Mythic Dungeon isn't the same thing.
every tip from the countless guides I've read couldn't have prepared me for the monsters inside. It's not the bloodthirsty, Viking-like Vrykul, but the player that's berating because I am a piece of tank and cancer.
No! Don't fucking laugh! Oh, I wanna punch you in the
Messner's experiences
Which, to be fair, like, there are a lot of tanks, and I don't want to make this turn into, like, some kind of tank support group, okay? I don't want tanks to watch this video and think to themselves, oh, it's so hard to be me, I work so hard, and, you know, like, I deserve to be taken seriously. Guys. There's a lot of tanks that get shit because they're fucking garbage. They actually suck. They don't know anything about the fucking game. They click their abilities. They backpedal. They can't hold aggro. They don't know the dungeon. They're using leather armor and they're supposed to be using plate and they're fucking garbage. And you know what? You can tell whenever something like that happens because it will ruin your entire fucking day. It is so bad. Not using a shield. Yeah, there you go.
not unique. And he goes on to say, quote, as much as
I
verbally
would say most tanks suck.
harassing strangers on the internet is tasteless, I also can't help but sympathize when a player gets angry at me.
Yeah, because it's
After
probably
all,
your fault.
my failures are actively wasting their time,
That's right.
and no one wants to spend 40 minutes clearing a dungeon that should take 20. This kind of toxicity is rampant in matchmaking.
I also think that tanking is it's a much easier role to do in terms of like expectations. So tanking is very binary, where like if you're holding aggro and you're not dying, you're a good tank. It's only until like you get into like Mythic 20 plus that people care about a tank's DPS. And realistically, nobody is going to criticize you on your DPS as a tank as long as you're staying alive and you're holding aggro. Whereas as a DPS, you are always criticized on your DPS in relation to other people. So I actually think that tanking is probably the easiest role in a lot of ways. Like if you understand the dungeon, in terms of expectations, tanking is the easiest role.
And it's one of the reasons it's so easy to find a tank. No one wants to do it, so every party is looking for one.
Yeah.
For example, if you queue up as a DPS, you're probably going to take 15 to 20 minutes to match up with other players.
Yeah.
But if you queue up as a tank, it'll usually
insta.
take less than 3 minutes before an open slot is found. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is, unless you're playing with friends, you're going to run into some toxic players through matchmaking. And this isn't just in MMOs. In fact, it's easy to argue that tanks are even more unpopular in PvP games. Because, if we return one more time to Wikipedia, the final 6 words are the nail in the coffin, while sacrificing their own damage output. And that's the kicker. While the tank is meant to be
What the fuck ever, man. Like, dude, Zarya is OP as fuck in Overwatch. Like, I did tons of damage to Reinhardt. What do you mean? Bro, like, whenever you play tank, you can do so much fucking damage in Overwatch.
More than just a meat shield in a game like
Yeah.
Overwatch, tasked with controlling space, dictating engagements, and peeling for wounded teammates. They trade their defense for offense. No matter how cool or well-designed a tank character is, the average player will find it boring if they can't kill anything. So how can developers fix this
I'm gonna be honest, like, I think tank is the most fun role to play in Overwatch.
issue? Well, it's not as simple as just giving tanks more offensive capabilities. The line between glorified meat shield and unkillable death machine is
Yeah.
a razor's edge. And when the tuning is just a tiny
See
bit
that, bro? Like, that was, see that? Look at, watch.
off,
Literally,
the Holy
did
Trinity
one tap him?
gets thrown into
Wait.
chaos. After all,
Why didn't it kill him in one hit?
if tanks can DPS as well as the DPS, why DPS? For
Yeah.
Overwatch 1, this issue resulted in GOATs. For more than a year,
also-
basically every professional
Tank.
team
Oh, it
was running
Ramtrada. I didn't even realize. I thought it was Genji.
3 tanks and 3 supports, with every DPS character other than Sombra
Yeah.
becoming useless. The reason?
I hated
Tanks
that
could deal
character.
just as much, if not more damage,
That's right.
all the while having the added benefit of being
More
a
health.
walking refrigerator.
Yeah.
The problem was so bad that they couldn't just change the characters, they had to change the way the game was played.
Mm-hmm.
First was the role lock, which ensured 2 DPS, 2 healers, and 2 tanks per team.
Yep.
And then in Overwatch 2, they fully transitioned to a 5v5 format so that teams couldn't have 2 tanks. Plus, tanks in PvP games share a lot of the same issues as their PvE counterparts.
I think the problem is, like, I'm talking about at WoW in specific. I hate tanks in PvP and WoW. I absolutely fucking hate them. The only time that I think you should be able to play tank in PvP is if there's a flag that you need to hold on to. Like, I think that you should literally not be allowed to queue tank into arena. It should just be grayed out. You can't do it. No prop paladins, no guardian druids, no blood DKs, no prop warriors. It should never fucking exist. It is it is never fun to fight against a tank. Now, I'll tell you this though. In another game like Overwatch, or I remember I played Heroes of the Storm back in the day, like, tanking was pretty much fine. But holy fuck did I hate playing tanks against WoW, playing against tanks in WoW. It was awful.
Similarly, in League of Legends, tank champions like Ornn and Maokai seem to flip-flop from being insanely overtuned,
Yeah.
simultaneously tanking and dealing the most damage on their team, to being nearly useless, no matter how fed they become. On top of this, tanks in League have to engage fights and peel for DPSs, and if they don't perform perfectly, they're gonna get flamed.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? Is, like, the tank needs to be aware of, like, the tank needs the highest level of knowledge because they do initiate encounters. So, like, whenever the tank makes a play, like an Overwatch or something like that, the tank has to make that play because they know what everything is happening. They know everything that's happening. Mercy Way raid? Wait, I got a raid? Start watching. What's this? Oh, it's her? Oh, shit. Yo, what up, boys? Hey. Hey, guys. How you doing? Yeah, hi, guys. Yeah. Yeah, hi. Hi. Hope you're having fun. This is a little bit different than what you saw before. Yeah. But it's still good.
Games that truly succeed in implementing tanks are the ones that don't pigeonhole themselves with the traditional Holy Trinity. Take the Heavy in Team Fortress 2, for example. He has the most health in the game,
Yeah.
but he also has the slowest speed in the game. He has a 50% reduction in knockback, but is a sitting duck for snipers. He
Sure.
can dish out a decent amount of damage, but easily gets outmaneuvered by scouts. Because TF2 doesn't have a set DPS, healer, and tank role, the Heavy isn't a mandatory character to have in your comp. But when you do include him, he's balanced and synergizes well with the medic, as God intended. For most games, however, the tank role remains unbalanced. Whether it's tanking for a raid group in World of War,
I think that Lost Ark has tanking very well designed. I think that a gun lancer tank in Lost Ark is probably the best implementation of a tank that we've seen.
Warcraft, defending the point as a tank in Overwatch, or being the
Ooh,
frontline
got
tank
'em.
in any multiplayer game in general, tanks are a tough role to get into. While it can feel incredibly satisfying in a pre-made group where everything gels and goes smoothly, it's typically a gamble every time you're solo queuing, and the experience can quickly go from
Yeah.
bad to terrible. With all the stress associated with the role, tank players truly are unsung heroes. The game knowledge and
No,
patience.
they're not. Let's just stop this right now. I play tank all the time. Tanking is not an unsung hero job. It's literally just being able to do the same thing that everybody else is doing, but knowing it slightly better. You have the lowest expectations of anybody in the group. So basically, if you're going to have, like, what is the hardest role? DPS is the hardest role. Because you are always being graded against the best players in the game. Whereas, like, healing is binary, tanking is generally binary. And let me explain why. Healers, all you have to do is make sure that other people don't die. If you do that, you're a good healer. Tanking, all you have to do is make sure that you don't die and you hold aggro. If you do that, you're a good tank. But DPS are always graded against the highest and best player that did whatever fight that they're doing. So because of that, DPS will always be viewed not really as comparatively good or bad as they really are. Does that make sense? Fucking read chat? No, why would I read chat? I know what I'm talking about. I played the game 15 years. I know this better than everybody else. Yeah, explain Gunline strat. Yeah, that's just the way it is. Bro, never played a healer? No. Healing can be really hard, but healing is only as hard as the other people in the group make it. So, like, healing, the difficulty of healing is always, like, variable based off of if you have a good group or not. Because you guys have seen a lot of these, like, you know, like mythic, like really, really good Mythic Plus runs or like challenge mode runs back in the day. Healers usually didn't even do anything. They're just sitting there doing damage the whole time. And they're just doing like incidental healing through the damage. Because they don't need to be spamming heals because everybody else in the group is really good. But the difference is that healing can be really hard, absolutely. But DPS is always going to be hard because you're required to play at a level that is like extremely high because you're always being graded against other DPS. And DPS can always be higher, but healing can't always be higher. This is Krat, healers in chat are molding? Yeah.
The role demands, and the
Incentive
thick
to improve,
skin
yeah.
you need in addition to your thick armor makes it a hard but
Tanking-
rewarding role to
Well, one thing we can agree on, right, is we're arguing in chat whether healing or tanking is hard. Or sorry, whether healing or DPS is harder. Nobody's arguing whether tanking is harder, okay? My point is that tanking is the easiest job in the game.
play. So the next time you see a tank player in your game, show them some appreciation, and if they do mess up, just remember, it's hard work, but someone's gotta do it. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this
more
list,
tanking
and shout out to
propaganda.
B, Pass, Shampoo, and
More
Yashichi
tanking
for being
propaganda,
platinum
guys.
supporters, as well as an extra special shout out to Cloud, Steph, and Jack for
Videos
being
about
our
hate, not
diamond
difficulty?
supporters. We
Well, they
really
get the hate
appreciate
because
it.
they do it wrong.
If you want to talk to us, check out our Discord. If you want to support our channel and get info on unreleased videos, check out our Patreon. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is
is a
Jonah.
really good video.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, I actually like this a lot. This is a really good video. I'm gonna link it to you guys. I just think tanks get hate because they're stupid. They get hate because they're bad. Just be good.